The champagne was crystal. The penthouse was borrowed. And Daniel Chun was lying to everyone in the room. To new beginnings. He raised his glass, arm draped around Natasha's waist. She gleamed in Balmain, 26 and sharp as a knife. And to finally cutting dead weight. The investors laughed. 11 of them, scattered across the downtown Vancouver penthouse, drinking expensive wine and believing they were celebrating TechCore's Series C funding round. $22 million. Daniel's triumph. Your ex-wife must be devastated, Richard Portman said. 60, silver-haired, managing partner at Crestview Capital. Timing the divorce right before the funding closes. That's strategic. Elena. Daniel's laugh was casual, practiced. She signed the papers 3 weeks ago. Walked away with almost nothing. I gave her the Civic and $50,000. More than generous considering she never contributed anything real. Natasha pressed against his side. She didn't understand the business. Daniel said she was always confused in meetings. Completely out of her depth, Daniel agreed. Sweet woman. Simple. But when you're building an empire, you need a partner who can keep up. I stood near the window, white wine untouched in my hand. My Zara dress, 2 seasons old, made me invisible among the designer labels. They thought I was someone's assistant. The girl who'd handed out name tags at the door. They didn't know I'd been married to Daniel Chun for 9 years. Let me take you back. 7 weeks earlier. That's when everything crystallized. 7 weeks earlier, the accountant's office smelled like printer toner and bad decisions. 3:15 p.m. on a Tuesday. James Rothstein, our accountant for 8 years, looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Elena, I need to tell you something. Legally, I have to tell you something. I set down my coffee. We were reviewing year-end tax documents. Routine. Annual. Boring. Daniel asked me to obscure certain filings. Ownership structures. Asset distributions. James wouldn't meet my eyes. I said no. I could lose my license. But Elena, he's moving money. A lot of money. And he's doing it right before he files for divorce. The floor tilted. Divorce? You didn't know? James closed his eyes. God. Elena, I'm sorry. He met with a lawyer last week. He's planning to file within 30 days. The coffee had gone cold in my hands. What money is he moving? Everything he can. TechCore's structure is complicated. Multiple holding companies, international subsidiaries. On paper, you're a co-founder. You're listed as Chief Operations Officer. But Daniel's been restructuring, trying to dilute your ownership before the divorce. Co-founder. I'd forgotten that part. 9 years ago, in our tiny apartment in Surrey, I'd signed incorporation papers while Daniel talked about changing the world. I'd worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat while he built the company. My name was on every founding document. But somewhere along the way, between the seed funding and Series A, between the office expansion and the magazine profiles, I'd become invisible. What are my options? James slid a folder across his desk. I documented everything. Every transfer, every restructuring attempt. Some of them are legally questionable. And Elena? You own more of TechCore than he's telling investors. 38%, if you count all the original shares plus the options you earned as COO. I haven't been COO in years. Legally, you still are. He never formally removed you. Just stopped inviting you to meetings. I opened the folder. Page after page of financial documents, corporate filings, ownership structures. My name appeared again and again. Elena Novak-Chin. Co-founder. Chief Operations Officer. Primary shareholder. He thinks I don't understand this, I said quietly. Do you? I looked up. James, I have a master's in corporate finance from UBC. I worked as an analyst at Morrison Financial for 3 years before we got married. Daniel knows this. He's choosing to forget. James smiled. Then I suggest you remind him. The divorce papers arrived 2 weeks later. 5:47 p.m. FedEx envelope on the doorstep of our Kitsilano home. The one I designed, decorated, maintained while Daniel worked 16-hour days. Irreconcilable differences. Asset division attached. Please review and sign. The asset division was insulting. The Civic, 8 years old, 140,000 kilometers. $50,000. Our joint savings account, which I knew contained exactly $23,400 because I managed our personal finances. No mention of TechCore. No mention of stock options. No mention of my 38% ownership. I called my lawyer. Not a family lawyer, a corporate attorney. Michelle Tang. 43, ruthless, expensive. Don't sign anything, she said after reviewing the documents. And Elena? Start going to the office. You're still legally COO. Start acting like it. So I did. The next morning, 8 a.m., I walked into TechCore's office in my best suit. Aritzia, tailored, professional. The receptionist, new, young, looked confused. Can I help you? Elena Novakshin. Cool. I'll be in the executive wing. Her face went pale. I'll call Mr. Chun. Don't bother. I know where my office is. I didn't. They'd moved it. Twice. Finally found it. Converted into a storage room. Boxes of promotional materials stacked where my desk had been. I set up in the conference room instead. Opened my laptop. Requested access to all financial systems, all corporate documents, all investor communications. By noon, Daniel was standing in the doorway. What are you doing here? I looked up. Working. I'm COO, remember? Elena, we're getting divorced. You don't work here anymore. Show me the paperwork removing me from my position. Show me the board resolution. Show me anything that says I'm no longer chief operations officer of this company. His jaw tightened. You're being ridiculous. I'm being accurate. Daniel's face cycled through emotions, confusion, anger, calculation. He settled on condescending. Elena, honey, this is embarrassing. You haven't been involved in TechCore for years. You don't understand the technology, the market position, the Series C funding round currently in due diligence with Crestview Capital? $22 million at a $98 million valuation. I didn't look up from my laptop. Or did you mean the expansion into Asian markets that's hemorrhaging cash because you overpaid for distribution rights? Silence. I've been reviewing the financials. I met his eyes. All of them. I'm concerned about several expenditures. The penthouse rental, $18,000 monthly. Listed as corporate housing but used exclusively for personal entertaining. The consulting fees paid to Natasha Volkov, $15,000 monthly for marketing advice. Yet I see no deliverables, no reports, no measurable ROI. Natasha is a valuable. She's your girlfriend. And you're paying her with company funds. That's a problem, Daniel. His face flushed red. You have no right. I have every right. I'm COO. I'm a primary shareholder. And according to our corporate bylaws, any expenditure over $5,000 requires executive committee approval. I pulled up a document on screen. I count 47 violations in the last 6 months. Total value, $847,000. This is insane. You're trying to sabotage me. I'm trying to protect the company I helped build. The company I worked 3 jobs to fund while you developed the first prototype. The company I've owned 38% of since day one. You don't own 38%. I pulled up the ownership documents. Founding shares plus COO option grants over 9 years. It's all documented. James Rothstein provided me with complete records. Daniel's face went white. James had no right. James had every right. He's the company accountant, not your personal accomplice. I closed my laptop. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop trying to move assets. You're going to stop pretending I don't exist. And you're going to be honest with Crestview Capital about the company's ownership structure before they wire $22 million. Or what? Or I file an injunction blocking the funding round pending a full forensic audit, which would be very interesting for your investors to explain to their limited partners. He stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe the woman he'd married, the one who made herself small, who nodded during his monologues, who accepted being erased, had finally remembered who she'd been before him. You're bluffing. Try me. He left without another word. For 3 weeks, we existed in Cold War. I came to the office daily, reviewed documents, asked questions, made my presence impossible to ignore. Daniel countered by accelerating the divorce, hoping to freeze my assets before I could act. His lawyer filed motions. My lawyer filed counter motions. And then Richard Portman called me. Ms. Novakshin? Richard Portman from Crestview Capital. I'm the lead investor in TechCore's Series C round. I need to ask you some questions. We met at a coffee shop in Yaletown. Neutral ground. Richard arrived with his associate counsel, a sharp woman named Jennifer Park. Mr. Chen told us you owned less than 5% of the company, Richard said without preamble. That you were an early employee but never significantly involved. But our due diligence team found some discrepancies. I slid a folder across the table. I own 38%. I'm listed as co-founder and chief operations officer on all corporate documents. And I never agreed to the ownership restructuring Daniel attempted last month, the one that would have diluted my shares by 70%. Jennifer opened the folder. Her eyebrows rose. These are certified corporate records. From the company's incorporation through last quarter. Complete ownership history. Every share issuance. Every option grant. Every attempted transfer. Richard leaned back. Why didn't you raise this earlier? Because until 6 weeks ago, I didn't know my husband was planning to divorce me and pretend I'd never contributed to this company. I've been too busy keeping everything running while he played CEO to notice he was writing me out of the story. You kept everything running? Jennifer's tone was skeptical. First 3 years, I managed all operations while Daniel developed the technology. Years 4 through 6, I built our vendor relationships, negotiated our first enterprise contracts, and hired our initial sales team. Years 7 through 9, I stepped back because Daniel said investors didn't take companies with husband-wife leadership seriously. He promised it was temporary. I pulled out my phone, showed them emails, meeting notes, contracts with my signature, strategic documents I'd authored. I made myself invisible because I loved him and wanted him to succeed. He made me invisible because it was convenient. Richard and Jennifer exchanged a look. Ms. Novak-Shun, Richard said carefully, we're investing $22 million based on specific representations about ownership, governance, and leadership. If those representations are false, we need to reconsider. They're not false. They're incomplete. Daniel didn't lie about his ownership. He just pretended mine didn't matter. It matters a great deal, Jennifer said. You're the second largest shareholder. You have board rights, voting rights, significant control over corporate decisions. If you and Mr. Chun are divorcing, the company will be fine. I want what I built. I want what I earned. But I don't want TechCore to fail. I want it restructured honestly. Richard studied me. What do you want? My fair share. My title back. And governance changes that prevent this from happening to anyone else. We'll need to redo the term sheet, Jennifer said. Include you in all negotiations. Formalize your role. Good. Richard smiled slightly. Mr. Chin isn't going to like this. Mr. Chun, I said, is going to learn that underestimating quiet women is expensive. The new term sheet landed 3 days before the celebration party. Daniel called me 17 times. I didn't answer. The revised deal valued the company at $105 million, higher than the original, because Crestview liked having me actively involved. My 38% was now worth nearly $40 million. The governance changes gave me formal board seats, executive authority, and protection against dilution. And the funding agreement required both Daniel and me to sign. He had no choice but to agree. Which brought me to the penthouse party, watching Daniel lie to investors who now knew the truth. Richard caught my eye from across the room, raised his glass slightly. The trap was closing. Richard Portman cleared his throat. The penthouse went quiet. Before we toast, I want to acknowledge someone who's been instrumental to this deal. Someone whose contributions to TechCore have been, shall we say, understated. Daniel's smile froze. Elena Novak-Shun, co-founder and COO. Would you say a few words? Every head turned. They saw me for the first time. Really saw me. Not the assistant. Not the wallflower. The woman whose name was on $700 million in funding documents filed with the SEC that morning. I set down my wine glass. Walked to the center of the room. Thank you, Richard. I'm glad you asked. I looked at Daniel. His face had gone gray. I've spent 9 years helping build TechCore. The first 3, I worked 3 jobs while Daniel developed our core technology. I managed operations, handled contracts, built relationships. I did it because I believed in what we were creating. Because I loved my husband. Because I thought we were partners. Natasha shifted uncomfortably. Her hand dropped from Daniel's waist. Then somewhere along the way, I became inconvenient. Not technical enough. Not impressive enough. Not the kind of co-founder who photographed well in fast company. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. So I stepped back. Made myself small. Let Daniel take credit for work we did together. I told myself it was strategic. That it was temporary. That it was love. Elena, Daniel's voice cracked. But it wasn't strategy. It was erasure. And 3 weeks before the biggest funding round in TechCore's history, Daniel filed for divorce. The settlement offered me $50,000 and a used Civic. I looked around the room. For 9 years of work. For 38% ownership. For co-founding a company now valued at over $100 million. The investors weren't laughing anymore. So I reminded everyone what Daniel chose to forget. I'm not an ex-wife waiting for scraps. I'm a co-founder, a major shareholder. And as of this morning, when the SEC accepted our Series C filing, my stake in TechCore is worth approximately $40 million. Jennifer Park stepped forward. She'd been waiting by the door. The revised term sheet includes Ms. Novak's in all governance decisions. She has board seats, veto power over major expenditures, and protection against dilution. Mr. Chun agreed to these terms 48 hours ago. Because he had no choice, I added. The funding agreement requires both our signatures. Without me, there's no deal. Without the deal, TechCore burns through its remaining capital in 6 months. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Daniel found his voice. You're destroying everything we built. No, I'm saving it. You were destroying it, with nepotistic hiring, questionable expenditures, and governance so loose you thought you could erase a co-founder through sheer audacity. The penthouse rental? I gestured around us. Corporate housing that's used exclusively for personal entertaining. Natasha's consulting fees? No deliverables, no reports, just $180,000 in annual payments to your girlfriend. The Asian expansion that's failing because you overpaid for distribution rights without proper due diligence. I pulled out my phone. Projected spreadsheets onto the wall screen that dominated the penthouse. Daniel's screen, ironically, set up for his victory presentation. Here's every questionable expenditure from the last 18 months. Total value, just under $2 million. All requiring executive committee approval that was never obtained. Richard Portman's expression had gone from amused to glacial. Mr. Chun, you assured us financial controls were robust. They are. Elena is. She's exaggerating. I'm reading from our corporate accounts. James Rothstein, our accountant, documented everything. They'll be joining our board as well, per the new term sheet. Independent oversight. Natasha tried to slip toward the door. Jennifer Park blocked her path. Ms. Volkov, you should stay. The revised funding agreement requires TechCore to terminate all non-essential consulting relationships. Your contract ends tomorrow. You'll receive 2 weeks severance. 2 weeks. Natasha's voice shot up. Daniel promised me. Daniel, I said quietly, promised a lot of things he couldn't deliver. The party dissolved within 20 minutes. Investors left quickly, murmuring about due diligence and governance reviews. Richard and Jennifer stayed longest, reviewing next steps with me. Board meeting is scheduled for Monday, Richard said. We'll formalize everything then. Elena, I want to apologize. We should have caught this earlier. You caught it when it mattered. After they left, only 3 people remained. Me, Daniel, and Natasha. You've ruined everything, Daniel said. He looked smaller somehow. Diminished. My reputation, my relationships. Your reputation was built on my work. Your relationships were based on lies. I collected my coat. The divorce settlement has been revised. Michelle Tang sent it to your lawyer this afternoon. 50-50 split of marital assets, including fair valuation of my TechCore shares. Plus, I'm keeping the house. I designed it, I maintained it, and legally, my inheritance funded the down payment. The house was a gift from your parents to both of us. My parents. My inheritance. My name on the title. Read the paperwork. Natasha grabbed her purse. This is insane. Daniel, tell her. Tell me what? I looked at her directly for the first time. That I should disappear quietly. Accept being erased? I spent 9 years doing that. I'm done. She fled. The sound of her heels echoed in the stairwell. Daniel sank onto the penthouse couch. I loved you. You loved who you thought I was. The quiet, simple wife who didn't understand business. Who'd be grateful for whatever you decided to give me. I moved toward the door. You never asked what I understood. You just assumed I didn't. So this is revenge. This is justice. Revenge would be destroying TechCore. Justice is making sure it succeeds honestly, with proper governance, with recognition for everyone who built it. I paused at the door. You're still CEO, Daniel. The board voted to keep you. Your technical vision is valuable. But you'll have oversight now. Real oversight. People who will ask questions, demand accountability. Remember that leadership isn't about ego or erasure. Why didn't you just leave? take your shares and walk away. Because I built this company too. Because other people depend on it, employees, customers, investors. And because the best revenge isn't destruction. I smiled. It's success. Undeniable. Public success that proves everything you try to take credit for was always a partnership. 6 months later, TechCore closed a partnership with Microsoft. $200 million deal. My strategy, my negotiations, my relationships. The press release listed Elena Novaction first. Daniel signed the contract without objection. He'd learned that particular lesson. The divorce finalized 3 weeks after that. Clean split. Fair valuation. I kept the house and my $40 million in shares. Daniel kept his ego and a hard education in underestimating people. I started a foundation, Women in Tech Leadership. Funded it with $5 million. The mission: helping women maintain ownership, authority, and recognition in companies they help build. First grant went to a woman who'd co-founded a biotech startup with her husband. She'd been quietly erased from the company website, her contributions attributed to others, her ownership diluted. When she called after receiving our support, legal help, financial backing, strategic advice, she cried. I thought I was going crazy. He kept saying I was confused, that I didn't understand the business. You're not confused, I told her. You're being gaslit. And now you have resources to fight back. I see Daniel occasionally. Board meetings. Industry events. He's dating someone new, closer to his age, with her own company. Equals, maybe. He nods when we pass. Professional. Distant. The easy superiority is gone, replaced by something quieter. Maybe respect. Maybe just caution. Dorothy, his mother, who'd always been kind to me, sends Christmas cards. We have coffee sometimes. She apologized for not speaking up, for enabling his behavior. You were brilliant, she said. Not for the money or the revenge. For staying yourself while he tried to make you smaller. TechCore is thriving. The Microsoft partnership opened doors. We're hiring aggressively, expanding thoughtfully, building something sustainable. And I'm not invisible anymore. Every meeting, every decision, every strategic pivot, I'm there. My voice, my expertise, my contribution, finally acknowledged. The quiet woman in the corner wasn't weak. She was just waiting for the right moment to speak. And when she did, she didn't just reclaim her place. She rebuilt the entire system so no one could erase her again.